Listen, just one more thing.
Hello there. Welcome to my review of Columbo Season 9, Episode 6, Murder in Malibu. First broadcast on the 14th of May 1990 on ABC. It was directed by Walter Grauman, who only directed one episode of Columbo, but was a regular director on Murder, She Wrote, with 53 credits on that show. It was written by regular Columbo contributor Jackson Gillis, who had written for the earlier series. The episode begins with the book signing by Teresa Gorin of her newest steamy novel. We're also introduced to Helen Ashcroft, and actor and serial womanizer Wayne Jennings, played by Andrew Stevens, who is involved with both women. And while Helen is aware of this, Teresa is not. Teresa and Jennings head to her home, and she appears to be deeply in love with him, and he appears to love her money. These early scenes appear to play like a romance novel themselves, which I think is to demonstrate how manipulative Jennings is as he acts the part of whatever the woman he's with wants. As Gorin attends a TV interview, her literary agent watches as she reveals her relationship with Jennings. The literary agent, Jess McCurdy, played by the brilliant Brenda Vaccaro, on top form, is furious and immediately calls the private eye she's been paying to follow Jennings. He seems to be able to present evidence to Teresa, who calls Jennings while he's in bed with yet another woman to end their relationship. McCurdy is her sister as well as her literary agent, and Jennings knows that she's behind this. He rushes to Teresa's and en route puts on a pair of murdering gloves. He leaves a message on Helen's answer phone saying he's off to Teresa's, and we then see him shoot her twice. He stops at a diner as he leaves, making a phone call to suggest that he believes Teresa is still alive, before flirting outrageously with the waitress.
Like some?
Anytime.
It certainly seems as if he's setting up an alibi and making it look as if he's guilty at the same time. We cut to Columbo arriving at the crime scene with his traditional breakfast egg. The safe is open, her gun is missing, and another lieutenant describes what they think happened, a break-in gone wrong. Columbo briefly questioned Teresa's secretary before Jennings shows up and is introduced as her fiancé.
He is? Oh.
Jennings claims there's a jade statue missing, presumably because he took it. He gives Columbo short shrift, but then McCurdy arrives and really puts the cat amongst the pigeons. She is reminiscent of Goldie in Blueprint for Murder, with her utter contempt for Jennings. He cleverly sets his alibi up with her rather than Columbo, but makes sure Columbo overhears. McCurdy is far more dismissive of Columbo than Goldie was, and judges him entirely on his appearance. If we hadn't seen it happen, it might look as if she had killed Teresa. Columbo then begins canvassing potential witnesses, including a cable company that reports seeing a birdwatcher, but long after the murder had been committed. He then goes to McCurdy's office to watch the tape of the TV interview and manages to offend her.
Your baby sister. She's so beautiful.
Teresa was only 2 years younger than I, Lieutenant.
While they talk, Columbo gets a call that the birdwatcher has been picked up, and McCurdy looks very nervous. They both go to Teresa's house, where another cop is questioning the birdwatcher, with no joy. Columbo uses all the information he's gathered so far to play Jennings, McCurdy and the birdwatcher, McCurdy's PI, off each other. Jennings denies doing anything wrong, and McCurdy uses her knowledge of him to catch him out, which it does. But also reveals she was there when Teresa called Jennings to break up with him. The PI reveals Jennings was at the house after that call, and Jennings tearfully confesses to shooting Teresa.
I couldn't help it. I don't even know how it happened, except when I went into her bedroom, there was a gun.
Columbo is surprised he broke down so quickly, but as he's having his rights read to him, another cop comes in with the autopsy, saying Teresa was shot with 2 different guns. The bullet that killed her came sometime before Jennings shot her, meaning he shot a dead body, and explaining why his confession comes halfway through the episode. He faints from the shock. Somewhat disheartened, Columbo goes to see the coroner, who confirms his findings. Columbo then visits Jennings at the hospital, where he's flirting with a nurse. He says he left a message with Helen, which should now act as his alibi, but Columbo discovers Teresa also had a life insurance policy with Helen, and Jennings is the beneficiary. Columbo then gets Jennings up on a cherry picker with the cable company to see if the cable guy saw the murderer's car, which he says he didn't, but McCurdy lives only a few miles down the beach. Columbo makes his way there and speaks with McCurdy. He gets her to admit that she made the break-up call to Jennings. Her maid says there's a call for him, they've found the gun, and as she leaves the room, she's surprised by Jennings, who is also romancing her. It's hard to find a woman he isn't romancing in this story. Jennings confronts McCurdy, and at the same time puts the moves on her. Back at the morgue, Columbo has more questions for the coroner about the clothes Teresa was wearing, and discovers something that gives him an idea. He goes back to see McCurdy and spots Jennings' car, but neither are there. They've gone shopping, as Jennings appears to have found his new walking bank account. Columbo arrives at the clothes store they're at and is ready to reveal who did it. It was Jennings, which he of course denies, and McCurdy believes him until Columbo offers her proof that is irrefutable to her. Whoever killed Teresa also dressed her, someone who knew her very well and made a mistake only a man would make. He put her underwear on backwards. This is another episode that has the feel of an original episode, but with a twist. The fake murder is a great twist that changes this from an inverted mystery to a regular mystery, then back again as the fake murderer is revealed to be the real murderer after all. Jennings is a real scumbag of a villain, chasing every girl he meets, although I think the motive could have been clearer, as it doesn't seem like he struggles to get favours from any of the women he sleeps with. It's also quite slow-paced in places and might have benefited from being a little shorter. But there's not a huge amount of fat to trim. The gotcha is okay, but doesn't necessarily feel like it would stand up to any scrutiny in court. I'm not exactly sure how you could fix that, but I also don't want to nitpick that too much, because whether it would lead to a conviction is not the point of Columbo. The point is whether he can catch the murderer out, and he certainly does. The performances are pretty good. Stevens is really slimy and unbelievably false as Jennings, and Vaccaro plays McCurdy so well, her outward strength occasionally giving way to her inner insecurities as she struggles with the fact that she was indirectly responsible for her sister's death. I enjoyed the way they played with the Columbo formula and threw Columbo a curveball at the midway point, although I don't believe Jennings would have got away scot-free with shooting a dead body, as there are other laws he broke to do it, so it might have been interesting if he'd been in jail from that point on, and McCurdy had changed her attitude towards him based on her guilt over her sister's death, and fought to get these charges dropped until it's revealed he is the murderer. or if he'd set it up to implicate McCurdy. There's a hint that that's the way that they were taking the story, but then that goes nowhere. And that's not the story they were telling here. I think overall it falls down because the strength of the relationship between the characters is not well established before the murder is committed, and doesn't really go anywhere afterwards. It set up Jennings as a serial womanizer, but doesn't really set up why that matters to him when to the point that he has to kill Teresa. I think it's a fairly enjoyable episode with a memorable gotcha, but doesn't quite work as a Columbo episode, and would perhaps be more suited to a different style of TV detective show. So for me, this one is a 3 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.